Karen from the HOA actually called the cops on me right to my lakeside cabin because I refused to sell the land I'd inherited from my grandfather 10 years ago. She showed up waving forged documents, screaming that I was an illegal squatter on my own property. But when the officer arrived, looked me in the eyes and suddenly froze, standing at attention and saying, "Hello, boss." Karen's smug grin evaporated in an instant. She had no idea the trap she'd just walked into. I should back up. My name's Jack Ryland, and I'm an architect now, though for years I worked with the Department of Homeland Security. My cabin by Pine Lake wasn't just a home, it was a legacy. My grandfather built it in the 80s, a quiet retreat, a reminder of where we came from. He always told me land isn't just property, it's family. I believed him, and that's why I kept the cabin alive, fixing it up, using it as my office to design eco-friendly homes. It wasn't some millionaire's villa, just a sturdy wooden cabin overlooking water that shimmered at sunrise. To me, it was priceless. Then came Cynthia Prescott, though everyone whispered behind her back and called her Karen. She was the new president of the Pine Lake Estates, HOA, a woman who strutted around like she wore a crown made of bylaws. One Saturday morning, I heard car doors slam and saw 6 people marching toward my cabin clipboard guy, a so-called paralegal, a photographer snapping every angle like I was a crime scene, and Karen leading them like she owned the ground they walked on. I stepped outside before they could knock, smiled, and blocked the doorway. I'd learned long ago in the service control the opening moment control the confrontation. Karen wasted no time. She shoved a fat manila envelope toward me saying I had 72 hours to accept their offer to buy my land or face legal removal. I didn't touch it. I just asked calmly, "On what authority are you demanding? I sell private property that existed decades before this HOA." That caught her off guard. She snapped back about covenants and community plans, but even her board members wouldn't meet my eyes. I started recording on my phone and told her flat out my property predates the HOA, they had no jurisdiction, and if she wanted to challenge me, she'd better cite real law. She didn't. Instead, she seethed, muttered about power she had then stormed off with her little entourage. But the photographer kept snapping until the very last second, documenting cosmetic details like a crooked shutter or chipped paint. I knew what they were doing, building a harassment file, hoping to bleed me out with fines until I caved. They didn't realize they'd just lit the wrong fire. Still, their pressure grew fast. One night, every light in my cabin cut out. My neighbor's power was fine. I checked the box at the end of my driveway and saw fresh tool marks. Someone had sabotaged my line. Then came the text, "Stop digging, or you'll end up worse than Webb." My stomach turned. Marcus Webb had been my teammate overseas, a man who once saved my life in Afghanistan. He'd owned the property next door until 18 months earlier, when the HOA hit him with violation after violation. Wrong mailbox, paint too tall grass. His daughter's chalk drawings counted as unauthorized decor. They drained him of $67 grand in fake fines while his 12-year-old daughter Emma was battling leukemia. He lost his home, lost his savings, and with it the chance to afford her treatment. When I tracked him down in a rundown apartment, he looked 20 years older, hollow-eyed, ashamed. Hearing him describe how they crushed his family while Emma fought for her life, it broke something in me, and for a moment I faltered. Sitting in my truck afterwards staring at the lake, I asked myself if I was crazy. Was it worth it? Was I just being stubborn, clinging to a cabin while powerful people with endless money and lawyers stacked the deck against me? Maybe I should just walk away before they destroyed me too. That's when Eleanor showed up. Eleanor Hayes had once been HOA treasurer before Karen pushed her out. She slipped into my kitchen like a whistleblower out of a spy film, carrying a folder and a USB drive. "You need to see this," she said. Eyes sharp. On the drive were financial records, emails, proof of hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled into a Delaware shell company called Westport Holdings. Karen wasn't just a power-hungry HOA queen. She was working with a casino magnate, Theodore Blackstone, laundering money and clearing land for a massive resort and casino project, Project Clearwater, and Cynthia Prescott. Her real name was Cynthia Morrison. A fugitive I'd investigated years earlier in Operation Landslide, a land fraud case that vanished when she disappeared. My old enemy had reappeared right here, hiding behind the title HOA President. That knowledge flipped the switch in me. Marcus hadn't just been unlucky, he'd been targeted, same as me. Families were being chewed up and spit out so Blackstone could build his empire. That night, I sat in the dark cabin, Eleanor's USB glowing on my laptop screen, and I swore I wouldn't let them win. If Karen wanted a war, she'd picked the wrong veteran. A few days later, Karen came back this time with a slick lawyer named David Sterling. He strutted into my cabin with a briefcase announcing I had 18 violations, and producing what he called a voluntary transfer agreement, basically my supposed consent to sell the property. My jaw clenched. I examined it calmly. The signature wasn't mine. The document was stamped, internal draft only, and it referenced the Pine Lake Luxury Resort and Casino, complete with environmental violations they were hoping to gloss over. I looked up at Sterling and asked, "Would you like to explain how an internal draft document from a development company ended up in the hands of an HOA?" His face drained of color. Karen tried to interrupt, but the damage was done. They'd just handed me proof of fraud. But Karen wasn't finished. That afternoon, police cruisers pulled up outside. She stood by her Mercedes with a witness grinning, certain this was checkmate. She'd filed a harassment complaint accusing me of stalking, making threats, even abusing my military background to intimidate residents. The lead officer stepped out tall. Composed Officer Cole Ramirez. As he walked up, I saw his eyes narrow, recognition flickering. He asked about the allegations, and Karen eagerly jumped in, her voice shrill with practiced outrage. I denied the nonsense calmly, then added, "What I do have is evidence of fraud, financial crimes, and a fugitive hiding under a false name." Cole studied me, then asked quietly, "Were you the commander on Operation Landslide in Nevada?" The moment hung frozen. I nodded. His back straightened, his hand shot to his brow, and with a voice that shook just enough to make Karen's jaw drop, he said, "Sir, good to see you again, boss." Karen's smirk shattered. She'd dragged in the one cop who knew exactly who I was and what I'd done. I leaned close enough for her to hear as I told Cole, "Your complainant is actually Cynthia Morrison, wanted in a federal land fraud conspiracy." Cole's training kicked in instantly. He turned to her and said, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning." That's when Karen lost it. She screamed about Blackstone's connections, about FBI agents on his payroll, about how we'd disappear if we tried to stop him. Every word was another nail in her coffin. Cole cuffed her right there beside her Mercedes while neighbors peeked from behind curtains. And that was it, the moment everything unraveled. The woman who had strutted onto my property with fake authority, who ruined Marcus's family, who thought she could bully me into submission, was exposed as a criminal, dragged away to face the federal system she'd spent years hiding from. The fight ended not with fists, not with shouting, but with one arrogant HOA tyrant overplaying her hand and revealing her crimes in front of the wrong man. Sometimes the greatest power you have is refusing to bow, holding your ground until the bully collapses under their own weight.